It's the first class that's doing. So we are dealing about medical electronics. So medical electronics is all about saving the life. So for example, this subject will be interesting to the students who thought to become a doctor. For example, as I know, Yashwantala he thought to go for medicine but became an engineer, and is now might be a little bit frustrated. But you see, this more than what a doctor can do, an electronics engineer can do, because you see a doctor or life save பண்ணனும்னா he needs to deal with the patients every day. He needs to deal one to one and save one to one life. Whereas if an electronics engineer want to save the same human life, he can do it in one shot. One equipment which you design can save lives for entire generations. For example, somebody thought, why not I use laser instead of pointing to treating? So that laser treatment is now saving people's life from cancer. It is not even medicines which is saving the people from cancer. It is the electronics is saving the people from cancer, right? So we are fighting. So by mistake, if anybody thought to go for medicine and landed it with electronics, so doing your project or concentrating in medical electronics field and doing a project, you can still save life. You can still serve the society and save many at a time. Not doctor means you need to go to a field and save, whereas here that's not the case. So with that introduction, I want to start. So so this session is like evolution of medical electronics. So before going into, we should know where is medical electronics. So medical electronics is around us everywhere, whether you have noticed or not. Medical electronics is everywhere. For example, I'll show you a picture. So this is, people call it like smartwatch, or in other words, they call it as fitness watch, Fitbit watch. So this is not just a smartwatch. So fitness bit watch is a health monitoring device. It sees how many steps you have taken, heart rate, pulse rate, and so on. So medical electronics is becoming an everyday part of life. So that's where I want to insist. I'll show you another application. This is the second one. You see, people with partial hearing problems have no treatment in right? So, but this this pacemaker is trying to change even the fate. It is extending the people's life. So electronics engineer stands next to God so that we can extend or rewrite the fates of the people. So this is where, so these are just three examples which I showed you about where medical electronics is, right? So now the question is, why medical electronics? What if there is no medical electronics? So what do you see here? Anybody in this picture? What do you see? Yeah, it's a recording theater. The word recording theater, recording theater. Sorry, not recording theater. Excuse me. It's an operating theater, right? So operating theater or operation theater, yeah, we call it as operation. If you ask a CSE student, he will say it is some activity, right? Whereas if you ask a military student, like for example, in movies also, you would have heard it, Operation Madden, undercover operation. An operation is something which has to be executed without making any compromise. அதுதான் இப்போ military police இதெல்லாம் operation, undercover operation. இங்க why it is called as operation theater is a series activity, my pointer is showing, is going on. It is about saving one person's life. So that is why it is called as operation. Why it is called as theater is, in those days, this medical students used to stand around or sit around this operation theater and used to watch. So they used to demonstrate. இப்போ உங்களுக்கு 12th they would have taken a frog and they would have operated and showed you, your biological teacher, right? 10th or 12th. So similar way they tend to see, so this is how heart needs to be operated, and the experts will do it and these people will see it. So this was around 1805, 1805 at the picture. So this was the condition. So here you can see that there is no electronics involved, there is only electrical thing or a light, focusing light. Okay, there are scissors and all mechanical things, right? So for cutting and joining, stitching, and there is no electronics involved. Whereas if you see today, this is the operation theater today. You can see that there is no mechanical or electronics, sorry, electrical things which is associated. Everything is electronics. The monitor, the equipments, and even the lights or LED focus lights, everything. It doesn't seems like an operation theater. If you see the lighting and all these effects, it seems like a star hotel, right? So this is what, so this is nowadays in 2020, this is the operation theater. And the patients need not stand inside like this. For example, nowadays the disease is spreading like anything, so they cannot be near the patient and watch it. Now they can be in the remote, so they can watch it anywhere around the world. Even nowadays doctors are from abroad and they are trying to guide and the local specialists about how to operate. So that's the sophistication, or that's the improvement electronics has made in medical field. So if there was no medical electronics today, then this would have been the situation today. So I think by this you would have understood what is the importance of medical electronics, right? So before going into it, means medical electronics, the history of medical electronics is very, very important. So we should know where medical uh, entered and how it changed the entire things upside down. Because if you know, if you go to hospital today without a scan, the doctors, your MBBS doctor, your dream doctor, cannot diagnose anything. So it is electronics which is playing the role. So let's see how it evolved, the medical science evolved, and where medic means electronics join hands and change the things. இது கொஞ்சம் story மாதிரி it will be nice. So in the beginning, so the first medicine kind of activity was about yogic science. So that's where it all emerged with. See, the primitive man. So primitive man, the human being who knows how to use the tools. The primitive man started watching the animals and birds and the insects around. That's why in this I have put what are they doing. So and then he means monitored all these things and he tried to mimic whatever they do. So that's where yogic science uh, stepped into. So that's the start or beginning of medical science. So this is cobra pose, they say. So I think um, in our yoga club, no, Sivaprakasam sir is leading it. He would have. This is another called as entertainment. This camel. So whenever activity of an animal, for example, if it is cobra or something similar to the, for example, practice camel pose, the water thirsting will be reduced, something similar to that. There are around 300 plus இதை வந்து கிரியாஸ்ன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. So kriyas in yogic science. So but the thing is, in this yogic science help to extend the lifetime. For example, healthier இப்போ 40 ஏஜ் வரைக்கும் இருப்பாங்கன்னா, this when you do this yoga you can be even healthy at the age of 70. But it is not sure that you will not get a disease. So what happened is, even though people started doing yoga, they fall sick. So you see, the man started watching the animals as usual around, and he started developing something. So that's where Ayurveda came into picture. So if you have growing the pets, you would have seen dog going and eating this grass, or even cat, and all these things. Even tiger and lion would eat grass. புலி பசிச்சா புல் திங்காதுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. But if it falls sick, it will definitely eat some rat herbs. See, it is getting healed. So the man started watching it and tend to develop something, so which is what we call it as Ayurvedic medicine, right? So this is so. So the second means the medicine field evolved from yogic science to slowly into herbs, Ayurvedic medicines. But the time demanded something. So what you see here, so this you would say thousand things, but it cannot be taken as symptoms, right? So there is a preliminary screening, right? Then you can see that there is something called as preliminary treatment. She is doing an injection or doing whatever, or give some medicines and ask you if this fever or something holds on for 3 days. Even after 3 days, then come back, we need to go to the next stage. Oh, you need to be watch careful here. So until then, until this stage, there is no role of electronics. There is a role of only paramedical industry, medicine. But after 3 days, when you go with the same symptoms, then doctor would ask you to go for a scanning, a GIF foot X-ray, but they will ask you to go for a PET scan or a CT scan or whatever. So after allopathy demanded the role of medical electronics. See, even in medical electronics, beginning in the early stages, electronics played a role in assisting the medical field. Mean they tend to develop only diagnosing equipment. Diagnose means finding it out. So they tend to design only diagnosing equipments. Then later on stage, uh, the time evolved, or they ended up with even treating. So this is for diagnosing equipments. I have shown an X-ray image, right? So nowadays, medical electronics is also trying to play the role of a doctor. So it is trying to treat. So for example, this GIF is a radiation therapy. We'll call it as radiation therapy. I think even, I'm not sure, at least even in our class, there would be somebody who have done LASIK treatment, right? Possibly girls. They would either use lens. So to avoid lens, because lens can be used only 8 hours, we go for a LASIK surgery. LASIK surgery is an application of laser. So I've shown it to you here. So even after 1 hour of LASIK surgery, you can go to work and do it. So that's the role of medical electronics. So it's treating medical came into picture. So I thought to plan an activity. If you means the class reopen irons, I thought to do an activity. So in that activity, what I have done is I have given this. We would have seen it in our EC2 lab. EC2 labல நீங்க CRO இது பண்ணும்போது CRO ஒர்க் ஆகுதான்னு பார்க்கறதுக்கு what I would have done is I would have connected the probe. For example, I have connected the probes and I'll touch the two terminals of the probe, and there would be something, some wave would come, which you would have thought it like some noise. So I would have told you CRO is working. I've been solid. So, but that's the activity I thought to ask students to do. So that is actually, if you see carefully, those two probe leads is picking a signal from my body. The only problem is we don't know from where the signal comes, but that is the very basic bio signal measurement activity. So that's how when you do that more precisely, you're recording the activity of some organ. So I thought to do it in real. So, so for example, if you, instead of that probe, if you keep a specific electrode in the chest region, it will pick up the electrical signal from the heart, and that's what we call it like. So that's the idea of medical or signal. So you would have kept some kind of noise like. So that is actually not. It is actually a biomedical signal. Noise being a touch because a voice is Gnana. So if it was not, it would be straight. But it's not only when or touch that, right? Uh, so is it clear so far? Students இருக்கீங்களா? Students, are you there? So infrared thermometer. So in this I have highlighted infrared thermometer. So from this name, to see only thing in a good thing in electronics is whatever may be the functioning of the device, we have named it. Meter is something that tends to display or read out something. So that's what you call it as a meter. If it is measuring the speed, you call it as a speedometer, right? If it is measuring uh, the fuel value of your bike, you call it as fuel meter. So meter is something that reads out a value. Thermometer means thermal, means temperature. So thermometer means it is going to display the value of the temperature. Now infrared thermometer means you are going to make use of infrared radiations in order to make the in order to display the value of temperature. So this is what we see it every day, right? Especially they do it in your, yeah, in our forehead. So because forehead is the average temperature of the body, right? So that's what they do. So before going into why IR thermometer, see, if there was no role of electronics, we could not have handled this COVID pandemic situation with this mercury thermometer or digital thermometer. Yeah, because these two thermometer needs to touch the patient in order to measure the temperature, obviously, right? So in COVID, if that was the case, so that's not the title today. So today is not thermometer, so infrared. So this is what I've shown here is a frequency spectrum. I don't know how many of you know it. See, uh, light and EMF waves is not different. It is all one thing. Even a light is an electromagnetic radiation. So this you can see. So the at the top, the reading or the scale is in wavelength, and at the bottom it speaks about the frequency, right? So you can see that when the frequency is increasing, when the frequency is low, you call it as ultra low frequency. Low frequencies, then comes radio frequency, then comes microwave frequency. Microwave comes in gigahertz. So we make use of in cell phones and all. After microwaves, then comes infrared radiation. So uh, the same microwave, for example, when you tend to increase the frequency of the oscillator, it results in the production of infrared waves. So, and then comes the visible light. Visible light spectrum is here from 750 nano, 400 nanometer to 750 nanometer in the band. Then comes ultraviolet rays, and then X-rays. X-rays we are going to use gamma rays and so on. So everything is this is an electromagnetic spectrum. So உங்களோட normal 1 kilohertz frequency light, it's all in the same band. It's all electromagnetic spectrum. Why do we call it as infrared? Means, see, in the wavelength, if you see visible light, the highest wavelength is 750. So after red, this one infrared is there. Or in frequency range, before visible frequency, the this invisible frequency light rays is there. So that is why you call it as infrared, is nearer to red. In ultraviolet, you can see that the wavelength body, the smallest wavelength is blue. It is around 400, and the minimum is violet, as violet or purple. And the light spectrum, the invisible light spectrum, so which is near the violet, is what you call it as ultraviolet, right? So, for example, even in frequencies, you call it as high frequency, very high frequency, ultra high frequency. So when the frequency wise, if you see, the frequency which is next to violet is ultraviolet. So that is why you call it ultraviolet. Then comes X-rays and so on. So this is the band of infrared. So that's what I want to show you. See, the basic bottom line principle, one line la kada solonu அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இருந்துச்சுன்னா, it is very simple. The principle is not like normal life. You would have seen this. You would have thought this infrared thermometer is going to send a light, அது பட்டு ரிஃப்ளெக்ட் ஆகி வரும், அந்த வேவ் லென்த் சேஞ்ச் ஆகும், அதனால சம்திங் இஸ் ஹேப்பன் யூ would have thought, but that is not actually happening. That is mistaken. So you see the concept is different, and it is very important. Any material, anything living or non-living, even this computer or this pinalakra saver, right? So even that wall, above absolute temperature, that is 0 degrees centigrade, it will try to radiate infrared waves. Even if it is my pillow, or anything, this chair or whatever, it is at a particular temperature which is higher than 0 degrees centigrade. It will emit an infrared rays from it. So that is it. So that's the basic thing. So that infrared radiation is directly proportional to temperature. If the temperature of that material is more infrared radiation is going to come. So as similar to that, so we are going to pick that infrared radiations and correlate it with the temperature and display the value. So this infrared thermometer is not trying to send any wave, any light waves. It is simply a passive. It is not an active. It is a passive device which will acquire the light which is coming, as similar to a camera, right? உங்களோட night vision camera இருக்குல்ல, அதுவுமே வந்து that's what it is doing. So in the night or daytime, any material is dissipating infrared. So it doesn't matter whether it is morning or it doesn't matter whether it is night time. It is at a particular temperature greater than 0 degree temperature centigrade, it emits. That's what the infrared cameras will pick up. But this infrared thermometer will have a laser beam. So in the laser beam பார்த்துட்டு இந்த laser beam பட்டு வருதுன்னு நிறைய பேர் they mistake it, but it's not like that. So the laser beam is just for guiding it. For example, in movies you'd have seen that person or a sniper. Yeah, that sniper, when he wants to take a sniper shot, he would have a laser gun. So laser goes through a long distance. அந்த மாதிரி this infrared thermometer to for our purpose to understand where we are taking. For example, if I want to take the reading on my forehead, so this laser gun points there. So I'm very sure that the light from there goes to the lens. You can see the lens and it falls on the surface. So adukatha and the laser beam is given here. The laser is not doing anything or any role with the measurement. Even if you turn off the laser, this device will work. So these are the parts. So laser pointer, that's why I mentioned this pointer. There is a IR lens assembly to capture the light, especially convex lens. Concave இல்ல convex ஒரு இடத்துல லைட்டை ஃபோக்கஸ் பண்ணும், right? Then there is a trigger switch வர்றப்போ that whenever the trigger switch comes, that specific reading is taken and displayed. So அதுக்காக there is a trigger switch. Then there's a holding handle, yeah. Then LCD display. Then there are some miscellaneous operating switches. So these are the parts. Now let's come to working. Right? A human being is there whom we want to take the temperature. So from him, at any daytime or nighttime, the infrared waves comes. It goes to the lens. The lens is focusing it, and there is an IR detector. The IR detector, so like LED means a photodiode, it will convert the light into a electrical signal. Here, infrared light into electrical signal variation. So that has been given to an amplifier, because this whatever we detected here will be in order of microvolts or microampere currents. So that is given to an amplifier, and then it is given to A to D converter, ADC, analog to digital converter, because it is LCD we are displaying. So from there it goes to microprocessor or a controller. எதுக்கு microprocessor or controller? Because there we have a program which says whatever the current temperature is less than or equal or greater than, accordingly we need to give an alarm or whatever it is. So அதனால there is a microcomputer or controller or a processor. So from there it is a LCD display, as simple as that. So there are some limitations. See, if you want to prank or if you want to cheat this IR thermometer, it's very easy. If you see this, you can understand. See, what he's doing is there's hot water. In his hot water, he's showing the hand. So there is and the water vapors will heat the surface, and this IR thermometer is now trying to read the temperature, but it is very high. So that is how it is. If you want to fake that you have a fever, so you can take a hot water bath and go, and when you stand before IR thermometer, the surface temperature will be very high. Remember, this I thought to give it as a mini project. So in nowadays, since this is becoming famous, so there are many do-it-yourself kind of infrared thermometers. I thought to give it. So now there's a time that you need to answer some questions. இது இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்காக இருக்கும், உங்களுக்கு புரிஞ்சுதான் பார்க்குறேன். So you need to answer it. Can infrared thermometers be used to measure the temperature of the water? Can anybody make a guess? தூங்காம இருக்கிறவங்க, can anybody
No,
make
sir.
can it
Yes,
be
yes. Mm,
yes or no? The answer is yes. The answer is also no. You might be confusing. See, the infrared thermometers can measure only the surface temperature. For example, if you take that gun and point it towards the water or top surface or wherever you focus, that temperature is what the infrared thermometers will measure. It cannot give entire temperature of the water body. For example, if you go to a pond, show your IR thermometer gun, மேல இருக்கிற surface water temperature மட்டும்தான் சொல்ல முடியும், internal water temperature சொல்லாது. So whosoever said yes or no, both are correct. Next one is, what happens when you point an IR thermometer to a transparent glass? உங்க வீட்டில் ஒரு glass இருக்கு, window. When you show it to a glass window, what would happen? என்ன நடக்கும் சொல்லுங்க பார்க்கலாம். What would happen? Transparent glass.
mm,
Any guess? It's pretty simple. If you remember that it is going to measure the surface temperature, then it is very simple. Whether it is transparent material or opaque material, its surface temperature it will try to measure. So the glass or the surface temperature is what it is going to measure, not the temperature of the object that is next to glass, right? So it will tend to measure the temperature, the surface temperature of the glass. Now it's a combined question. What happens when you show your IR thermometer to a glass having water? Water or temperature soluma, glass or temperature soluma, which one?
glass.
Yeah, correct. So
Glass.
glass. So the glass might have got hot due to the water, but it will measure only the surface temperature of the glass. இந்த நம்மளோட கண்ணாடி glass, டீ glass நீங்க காமிச்சீங்கன்னா, இந்த டீனால அது ஹீட் ஆயிருந்துச்சுன்னா, that hot surface of the tumbler is only it is going to show, not the water or the tea inside. So that's it. So can infrared thermometers be used at night time? நான் சொல்றது கவனிச்சிருந்தீங்கன்னா ஈஸியா சொல்ல முடியும். Yes, obviously it can be used, because I told you night or daytime, whatever may be the surface, the material, it will emit the IR radiation, and out of which you can measure. So yes is the answer. Now the question is, if yes, then why do surveillance camera use IR LEDs to get the picture at the night? இது நம்ம காலேஜ்லயே பார்த்துருப்பீங்க, or anywhere, right, in malls or in shops, there are IR LEDs here around the IR camera. I told you that this IR thermometer is also like a IR camera. It simply captures the IR rays. If so, then why do IR cameras need these IR LEDs? Can anybody guess it out? 5 questions தான் இந்த கொஸ்டினோட முடிய போகுது செஷன். இந்த IR camera,
For
yeah,
the With the help of iris, the camera will capture images.
Yes, similar to that. See, in an if you simply want to measure the temperature, you don't need the IR LEDs. It will try to measure. Whereas when you want to make an image, then you need more details to construct an image out of the light things you receive. So அதுக்காக what they'll do is, see, IR cameras is trying to build an image. So whereas IR thermometer simply displays a value, image is more complicated. So what we tend to do is we tend to have IR LEDs tend to focus these IR LEDs on some object, and the object but more IR, some portion actually comes from that material, and artificially when you focus some more infrared, it goes, hits, and then comes back, so that you have more IR values, so that you can construct an image out of it. So whenever you want to construct an image, you need to go with uh, IR LEDs. So for example, in our subjects, we have thermograph னு சொல்லுவோம். We tend to plot the temperature variations as an image. அதுக்கு thermograph னு சொல்லுவோம். So that forthcoming days we'll see. So there we'll always use it. So these are some industrial visits. If it reopens and everything settles down, then we'll go to nearby Royal Canin hospitals for first unit, gem hospitals அவங்க கூட MOUs இருக்கு, clarity imaging centers கூட MOUs இருக்கு. We can see all these things in real. Bioline lab, I'm trying to talk to them. So all these things, some activities. There is a BME department இருக்கு. So BME departments they have a lab, like instrumentation lab. So there we can also do some experiments, something like, yeah, some experiments, so that you can get better idea. So அதில் plan பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கோம். When it gets reopened, we can do it. Mini projects. Pendometer is nothing but the watch which I showed you. So IR thermometer, I thought to give it even the first session. The over session we have planned. We'll see when it gets reopened. We'll try to do it. So that's all for today. So hope it was interesting. So